We're in Milan, Italy, and if you saw our last video, we spent some time along the Canal District and saw Leonardo's Last Supper. Today, we're going to visit a couple of the famous churches here and maybe a museum. We'll see if we get there or not. But don't worry, it's not all going to be history and stuff like that. We're going to also have some great food as well along the way today. Right now, we just stumbled upon this little park here. I mean, it's tiny. It can't be more than 30 feet wide. It's between the Church of St. Nazareth and the university. There's a university building just to my right here. But that used to be a hospital going back hundreds of years. And in 1943, it was bombed by the Allies. That's a date when you come to Milan, you're going to see 1943 over and over again because they got heavily bombed and a lot of the city was destroyed by Allied bombs. So they had to rebuild and restore a lot of the city, and that was done in after the war in the 1950s when Italy saw its big building and economic boom. But anyway, it's a really quiet part of the city. We were going into the church here and they've got this fantastic dome in the middle, but I didn't want to film because they're just about to start Mass, and so I wanted to be respectful of that. But it's got a history dating back like 1700 years. So it's a fascinating place, and it's not on the tourist trail really at all, but it's a fascinating area. And we're going to go right now and see if we can get into the Bone Chapel to start our day here in Milan. Okay, this is it, the Milan Cathedral, the #1 attraction here in Milan. But first, let me tell you what happened at the Bone Chapel. We were planning on going to the ossuary, but it's Sunday and the ossuary is closed on Sunday. On the plus side, what was really interesting was they were having a service and it looked like it was all Filipino people. We were talking to our waiter last night at Ugo, and he told us his girlfriend is Filipino, and I was like, is there a big Filipino population in Milan? There's 40,000 people from the Philippines in Milan. And they've opened a lot of restaurants here. Filipino restaurants are a thing in Milan. Didn't know that. Not sure that we're going to be able to visit a Filipino restaurant, but it's cool to know that that's here. So we didn't get to go to the ossuary, is the moral of that story. We did get to go to the Milan Cathedral. This cathedral was started in the mid-1300s. It wasn't finished for almost 600 years. Imagine that. 600 years it took to finish this thing. It's not hard to see why, considering how massive this place is. They call it the biggest cathedral in Italy. And you might be thinking, well, what about St. Peter's in Vatican City? They say that because Vatican City's technically not a part of Italy. So yeah, it's the biggest one in Italy, but St. Peter's is bigger. Doesn't take away from the enormity of this church. You walk in and it is just absolutely massive. So that's what really strikes you in there, is just how huge this place is and the work that it took. The outside is probably more impressive than the inside because of all of the statuary, of all the intricate work and the spires, and just how fanciful the whole thing is. It's really incredibly impressive. So we went there, and we went to the museum. You can also go up on the roof. You can climb the stairs, or you can take an elevator. Boy, those stairs must be exhausting, but you can do that if you want and walk around on the roof, and you get a spectacular view. We also went to the museum, though, which is across the piazza. To me, surprisingly, that was almost more impressive than the church itself, because it has tons of gorgeous tapestries. There's paintings in there. But the most impressive part is all of the sculptures, the terracotta and the plaster sculptures that they used to ultimately design the cathedral. Some of them were even taken from the cathedral when the cathedral was renovated over the centuries and rebuilt. I mean, before they even finished it, they were starting to renovate this place. So that's the thing. You can get up close and really look at the statuary and the carvings. These things up on the facade, they're, 20, 50, 100 feet up in the air. You can't really examine them closely. But when you go to the museum, you can do that. And it's really cool to do that. Just a couple of things to think about. You can buy your tickets online if you want. We stood in line, only took us 10 minutes to get our tickets. And no hats allowed inside. And you have to have your shoulders covered. So, especially for the ladies, but guys, if you're wearing a tank top, you must have your shoulders covered, and you must be respectful. They say no shorts in there. I saw tons of people wearing shorts inside, so I guess you can get away with shorts, but you have to, there's people selling stuff out here to cover your shoulders. Inside they have a vending machine with like a little cape thing to cover your shoulders if you want to do that. But just keep that in mind if you're planning on coming here. This is a place you definitely have to see, though, when you come to Milan. So, all right, that's checked off the list. Maybe we try and get some food now. We're at Rimacenti, which is a huge department store right across the Piazza Duomo from the Milan Cathedral. You might not think that this is the place to go if you're looking for food, but if you come all the way to the top floor, there's this whole gastro area of Italian products. It ain't cheap. It's the kind of place where you'll pay €7 for a pound of pasta, of dried pasta. And the restaurant prices are really, really high too. But you get spectacular views. The food looks amazing. We're just at this cafe here. Ordered an espresso. Perfetto. A little brownie, because I couldn't pass up that. So good. And then they had these adorable little tarts. Oh, that's chocolate and coffee. Man, so good. And of course, with your espresso, you get a little water, as my brother would say, like in a civilized country. Oh man. And then we got a little tiny pistachio muffin. Pistachio, mocha, coffee. What more could you ask for in life? Absolutely perfect. Altogether, this came to about €10, which I think is perfectly reasonable. The other thing is, this is right next to the Victor Emmanuel shopping mall, which was one of the first, if not the first, open-air shopping malls. And it's just, ain't the place I'm going shopping. Prada, Gucci, Giorgio Armani. These are not places that I frequent. But those are there. There's some restaurants that look like complete tourist ripoffs too. That's just from me looking at them. I don't know. And then you have the spectacular atrium that you walk through. It's really pretty cool. And then the big tourist attraction is the bull. And if you spin on his testicles 3 times, you're supposed to get good luck. So we watched people trying to do that for a couple of minutes. It was kind of funny. But come into Rimsente and come up to the very top floor, past the home goods, past the menswear, and get some of this delicious food. And, you know, if you're looking to pack up your suitcase with food from Italy, this might be a place to look for some good stuff. This is the La Scala Opera House in Milan, and even if you're not an opera fan, and Lord knows I was not an opera fan growing up, I only came to opera late in life when we started coming to Italy, and I finally understood that opera was not some highfalutin music, but music of the people. Like rock music was music of the people in the second half of the 20th century. Opera was the music that people used to express in the 1800s. So anyway, this is the most famous opera house probably in the world, certainly in Italy, and you can go in and take a tour. We didn't get to see an opera. It's the middle of summer. Opera season is in the fall. I'm not even sure we would do it then. Tickets start at like 500 euros. You can spend upwards of 3,000 euros if you want to see an opera, but seeing the opera house itself is pretty spectacular. They have posters and memorabilia and busts and paintings and all kinds of stuff from all the opera singers going back to the 1700s. So it's fascinating. Even if you don't know anything about opera, there's some multimedia stuff to help you understand. And when we were there was a temporary exhibit of the director Zeffirelli. He was the most famous director of the 20th century. He kind of brought opera kicking and screaming into the 20th century. He's probably most famous, what I knew him for at least, was his work with Maria Callas, who was maybe the greatest soprano of the 20th century, at least one of them. And he worked quite extensively with her, but he had a long career. Only died a couple of years ago at the age of 96. But it was fascinating. They had a 30-minute documentary in there about his life. Tons of costumes that people wore. He worked with everybody you can think of besides Maria Callas. He worked with Pavarotti and directed all of the famous operas, including La Bohème and Ada and Pagliacci and all of those. So it's fascinating to see and to go in and just figure out what that guy was up to, because he was basically the guy in the second half after World War II. He was basically the guy in the 20th century when it comes to opera in Italy. All right, enough high art. Let's see where we're going next. I've got a bakery in mind, and hopefully this place is still open and we can go get a little treat. This is Marchese 1824. It was a famous coffee house and pastry shop. And we came in here after our culture of the opera to get some culture of food. So what did I get? Well, I got an Americano. So he made an espresso for me, but he put it in this big cup, and then he gave me this little pitcher of hot water. Nice touch there. I'm not adding cold water to my Americano. So basically the message is here, add your own water to the level that you want it, which I think is a nice touch. Nice. Okay, just the way I like it. And look at their pastries. Are these not the most adorable little things in the world? So we got this one strawberry, little strawberry tart. Oh man, that custard is so good. Custard on the inside, and then a little strawberry with a little glaze on the top. Then I got this chocolate. Okay, that's gonna need a spoon. Look at this, it's got a little gold on the top and a little fruit. Ooh, I can already tell. Oh man. That raspberry is perfect. Ganache on the inside. And then finally I got this little cream-filled pastry. And let me show it to you before I destroy this, because when I take a bite, it's just gonna go. It's filled with cream, granulated sugar on the top. Whipped cream, light, airy, sweet, perfect. Oh my goodness. And the atmosphere in here is just gorgeous. This screams Italy to me. Love it in here. Wish this was on my corner at home. Wish I lived in an apartment right around the corner. I could come here every day and enjoy a treat and an Americano. All right, this is Champagne and Gelato, a gelato shop here in Milan. We've had quite the adventure getting here. We made a few stops along the way. We went to the Poldi Palazzo Museum and the San Maurizio Church. San Maurizio Church had these gorgeous frescoes on it. As an added bonus, it was free to get in there, so that was nice. But the frescoes are absolutely gorgeous and worth a stop if you're in the area. The Poldi Palazzo Museum is a collection of all kinds of artwork, mostly Renaissance paintings from this guy, Poldi Palazzo. It's his private collection, or it was his private collection. The dude is dead now. But they created this museum, and it's got a ton of Renaissance paintings in it, including Botticelli's. So it's got a couple Botticelli's in there. And it's got Portrait of a Woman in there. That's not Botticelli, that's somebody else. But there's some famous paintings in there. And that's interesting. If you're not hardcore into artwork, I would say maybe skip that. It's like 14 euros to get in, so it's a little on the pricey side. But that's the thing. Here in Milan, museums and a lot of the churches too are expensive to get into. Like if you want to go to the roof of the cathedral, it's 22 euros. Seems a little bit steep for me, but you know, that's what it costs. Then I wanted to go to this wine bar, and we walked all the way out there only to find out that it's closed. Today's Sunday, and I've run into this a few times when places have their hours posted, and then you go out there, and even though it's during the hours they say, not open. Luckily, this place was about a 10-minute walk away. Now, they're a legit gelato place. They have regular gelato in there, and the gelato is covered, so it keeps the light out. If you watch my channel, you know that's a good thing. That's something that I look for when I go to a gelato shop. So that's a good sign. And they have all the normal flavors of gelato, but they also have several flavors of gelato that they make with champagne. So, you know, they're sorbets. So in other words, they're water-based instead of milk-based. And then they add the fruit in with the champagne. So, a couple of things you'll notice. First of all, I guess I have to say this. If you're expecting some effervescence, some bubbles, you're not going to get it. You know, going through the gelato process. There goes one of the famous Milan trams. Going through the churning process, you're going to get rid of all the bubbles, so there's no effervescence. But you can taste that sweetness of the champagne in there, which is kind of interesting, kind of nice. So I got the pear. They're using real pears in there. That's actual pear. That's not pear juice, at least I don't think it is. And then Karen got the plum, which, look at that color. Beautiful. I really like this one because it's got some nice tartness to it. You know, a lot of times your sorbets can be very, very sweet. Which you have to do. You have to add extra sugar with sorbets because you don't have the milk fat. Now we're getting a little bit into the weeds of gelato and sorbet making, but you know, I made gelato for about 6-8 years, so I know a thing or two about it, not to brag, but I do know a little bit about it. And you know, with sorbets, you have to add more sugar, otherwise you get more ice crystals in it. It ices up, it gets hard, it's not a good texture. With gelato, you don't have, or ice cream for that matter, you don't have to add as much because you have the fat in there, which keeps it from crystallizing. Here, you don't have to add as much sugar. Reason being, you've got alcohol in here. So alcohol has a much lower freezing point, so that keeps it from crystallizing. So there's your little bit of gelato sorbet knowledge for the day. All of that doesn't matter if the taste isn't there. This is brilliant. I love this plum flavor. Nice and tart, fresh plums. Really delicious. Perfect. Okay, this is total winner at Champagne and Gelato. We're at Ribello 18 for dinner, and I gotta say I've really enjoyed our day in Milan. I know we did a lot of culturally stuff, visiting churches and museums and stuff like that, but it was really enjoyable, and I really liked our food stuff we did, going up to the 7th floor of that department store. Excellent food there. That was really good. Going to Marchese for our coffee and our treats. That was outstanding. I love that place. And getting champagne sorbets at Gelato and Champagne. That was terrific as well. So now we're gonna cap it off at Ribello 18. I got the cacio e pepe, and I know this is not a Milanese dish. This is a Roman dish. This is made simply with pasta, with Parmesan cheese, and with pepper. No cream, even though it's super creamy. And that is a fantastic version. It's not traditional because you got penne in there. But fantastic. Really, really good. You know, cacio e pepe to me is always kind of a bit of a Jedi mind trick, because whenever I try to make it, the cheese always breaks and it gets clumpy. So I've got my own little workaround, but this is the real deal with the cacio e pepe. Outstanding. Really great, great version of that. Karen got the eggplant caponata. This is eggplant and onion. Usually there's celery in it, in a tomato sauce. And rich, delicious. There's some almonds in there too. And again, it's not a Milanese dish. That's a Sicilian, I believe, is where that comes from. With the eggplant and the nuts and everything, those all came from North Africa during the Moorish times to Sicily. So, again, not a Milanese dish, but absolutely delicious, so good. and we're capping it off with a 2019 Barolo from Piedmont. So Piedmont's not far from here. We're in the Lombardy region. Piedmont's the next region over, so not a Milanese wine, but close enough. And Barolo's my all-time favorite wine in the whole entire world. So when I saw that on the list, I had to get it. Luckily, everything here is made to order, so it took a little while for this to come out, and it's a good thing because she opened this fresh bottle of Barolo, and Karen and I have literally been sitting here for the last 20 minutes just aerating it as much as, because it needed to be decanted coming out of straight from the bottle. So, you know, this is finally starting to open up a little bit and really is reaching its flavor peak. And Barolo, oh my God, it's so good. I don't know this vintage specifically, 2019. I assume it's good. Most vintages from Barolo are outstanding. Fantastic, so good. Great way to cap off our day in Milan. The only thing I would say is, this whole day, we haven't really had, in this trip so far, traditional Milanese food. And I think in the next video, I'm going to make a concerted effort to really get Milanese centered food. We'll see how we do. I don't know. I would just say this. Milan is not only a national capital, it's not the official capital, that's in Rome, of course, but it's a financial capital, it's a cultural capital, and it's an international city. It's extremely cosmopolitan, so you have influences not only from all over Italy, but from all over the world. And like any place, any city like that, sometimes the local culture gets a little bit lost. It does happen. So we're going to see how we do in our next few days here, see if we can find some true Milanese dishes. But until then, I'm loving my cacio e pepe and my Barolo.